Would Wolves fans have taken 13th at the start of the season? I think Wolves are a really weird one to assess because they look doomed at one stage. They were bottom at Christmas, right?
Yeah, isn't
And it
that
looked like
insane?
their season was over. And then in comes an elite coach. You see the difference it makes. Because Lopategui's really turned Wolves around, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he came in at just the right moment as well. So the string of results they put together after the World Cup, in particular, beating Everton on Boxing Day was key for them. And I think they've been Liverpool as well in that run.
Mm-hmm.
So they've won at times where you probably wouldn't have expected them to, and their form looked dire going into the World Cup. So him coming in at that moment was a real coup, and a bit like Unai Emery at Villa, it was the right time, the right person. And you look at the amount of Premier League teams that kind of lost their managers after he came in for Wolves, and they would have probably been a better fit for Lopategui. So they got him at just the right time, and it saved their season. 13th, I cannot believe they find themselves just below Chelsea in the table. It's unreal because their season's been so mixed, hasn't it?
Yeah, very mixed. It lacks consistency. If you look through their results just on paper, it's really hard to define what Wolves' season was like after Lopategui came in, because they were here, they were there, all over the place. And actually, looking through that squad, that kind of makes sense because now they've got a weird mix of players that Lopategui's brought in, that are left over from Bruno Lage, and of course from Nuno as well. So it's an interesting one with Wolves because I don't really know what they do now, because there was that period, wasn't there, where it looked like Wolves were going to be the ones to try and compete with the top 8. They looked really successful when they first came to the Premier League, and they'd signed some really good players. And now the recruitment's starting to look a little bit more questionable as we move forward.
Well, that's the thing. They've got to work within FFP as well because they've spent big money, haven't they? Matheus Cunha in January was big money, 40 plus million pounds. He's not really kicked on. But then they've also balanced that with signings like Craig Dawson, who I think has been really positive in keeping them in the Premier League, with that kind of experience and just a different level of determination and wiliness that they needed. But I think without Ruben Neves, I worry about where they would have finished. And again, with this coming season, I don't know if he leaves, which it seems like he's probably going to do, how they replace him as well, because they've got a smaller budget to work with than they have in the past. And keeping Lopategui happy is going to be the biggest challenge for them because financially they are in a bit of a crossroads. And that team needs major changes, really, doesn't it?
Crossroads is a good phrase for it, actually, because the Wolves team that we got used to being a bit more successful in the Premier League when Nuno was there was Neves, Moutinho, Adama Traore and Jimenez. Jimenez has obviously, through no fault of his own, had a massive nosedive in his career, which is a real shame. And it looks like he's on his way out of Wolves now as well. Moutinho's not getting any younger. Adama Traore is out of contract. So you don't really know what this Wolves side's going to look like next season. And the one area of stability they've had this season was Lopategui. And it looks like he might move on now as well if he's not given what he wants. His comments after the Arsenal game were bewildering. They asked him, can you tell us whether you'll be Wolves manager the next season? And you feel like that would be an easy win for someone who was happy. But he said, I'm Wolves coach now. And I think that's all. He's obviously trying to go the board into doing something, and they need something because you're right. They'll lose Neves. They're going to lose Traore, who, all right, he's not been necessarily the most threatening player for Wolves, but that team really lacks goals, and they need to invest in improving the top end of the pitch. They can't afford to replace a midfield as well. No. And you imagine that not only Neves will move on, but Matheus Nunes, he's been a standout player. There's been big teams looking at him as well. Maybe both of them could leave. And then all of a sudden, Wolves are looking at a complete rebuild with very little money. That worries me, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think when we talk about teams that have been really successful this season, we talk about the identity they've forged. And I think Wolves have lost theirs to a degree. And I think if they lost Neves and didn't retain Lopategui, I wouldn't know who Wolves were. Their recruitment has been pretty obvious. They've got a very Portuguese-led direction that they're going in. So to suddenly have that rug pulled from under them and, the coach they've put so much kind of faith and patience in to suddenly turn around and go, yeah, this isn't working for me, would really make them become a relegation contender next season almost, Yeah. So yeah, really, really, really important summer for them. I can't really stress how important it is that they keep him happy, first of all. But if not retain Nunes, then try and replace him in the best way they can. Neves, rather.
It's funny because actually Wolves' recruitment was really smart for a really long time. And we were amazed at some of the players they were unearthing or managing to attract because of their connections, obviously. Neves in the first place was a miraculous signing. And then you think about how they brought in Daniel Podence and Pedro Neto, who were phenomenal when they first got in. But now you look at them and they're signing Diego Costa. Yeah. And you think, do they know what they want now, Wolves? It's a really difficult position to be in, but 13th, that shows what an elite coach will get you. They've had some excellent results. They've taken 4 points off Villa this season, frustratingly for me. So it's not been without its glories for Wolves this season. They've definitely had some highlights, but it's a difficult position to find themselves in moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, 13th is almost like a false position for them in some ways. Like, I don't think they deserve to be in 13th place. There's teams around them that have had a better finish to the season, especially. They're just lucky that Lopategui is as good as he is because he's worked miracles with that team. And again, crossroads is the word. If they can't do something miraculous this summer to make this team established and to really appease their manager, I can only see them sliding, which is worrying.
The good thing for them is they obviously do still have connections in the transfer market with George Mendes. So if there are deals to be done, he will find them.
Yeah,
that's an added bonus, obviously. But the last few, I mean, they brought in Paulo Sarabia, didn't they, in January, along with Matheus Cunha, like you mentioned, and we're yet to see that really work for them, and when you really would expect them to. They're two very, very good players who were playing above a level of Wolves before they joined the club, so you'd expect them to help Wolves kick on. We're yet to see that happen, and maybe it will next season. Maybe with a full this is Lopetegui's first full summer as well. If he does stay, they need to get that future sorted as soon as possible, don't they?
They're skirting the FFP line very closely, I think, with the amount of money they've spent, and they won't have European football. They haven't had the best prize money you'd expect from Premier League position, the position they finished in. So they are treading a very careful line. I think that will determine exactly what they can spend and how much Lopetegui's got available to him. So, yeah, uncertain times.